Sure. So we'll start in perfect order here. This was the first cheese that we made. It's called San Joaquin Gold. We originally set out to make a fontina. We totally botched the recipe. We were making it in a 40-pound block instead of a wheel. We were doing everything wrong that you could. Apparently we did a few things right though, because once we entered it into some competitions, the ACS in particular, to bring that up again, the feedback that we got from the judges for this particular cheese was incredible. And it is what helped us develop the recipe for what's now San Joaquin Gold, which is made in a 30-pound wheel. It's aged for 12 months. It's made with raw cow's milk, so it needs to be aged for a minimum of 60 days. It's got a really interesting flavor profile. So, it's definitely got the creamy, buttery taste to it. It's also got a little bit of a dry texture. It's got some of the tyrosine crystals that you can taste. It's got that grainy texture. This is a cheese that we use in a grilled cheese recipe that we have in our 3-cheese mac and cheese. And it's just a great cheese for snacking, for pairing with beer or wine. It's the cheese that helped put us on the map. And it's one that we're really proud of. We named it after the San Joaquin Valley that we call home. And then my father's attempt at humor, we called it gold because the first competition that we entered it in, which was the Los Angeles County Fair, we won a gold medal, although we were in the wrong category. So we put it in a fontina category. The judges took it out of that category and put it in a more difficult open category where we won a gold medal. So that's a little bit about San Joaquin Gold.
Cheese has got such a nice crunchiness. It's got a nice flavor that works well on just about any cheese board. And I think it's a great centerpiece on a cheese board, because a lot of times when you want to have something that maybe be a little bit different, but also at the same time something that really stands out. And this really stands out. I'm pairing it up with the Lagunitas Daytime IPA. A little bit of hoppiness in here, and but not something that's overly hop bomb. But it's real nice and clean. A little bit more than a lager, which that's what it needs. And also, I have some salami, which is the Creminelli Varzi, which is kind of like what you have. Doesn't fall into any real category. And then a little mango chutney with it. So it pairs so well across the board. I really love it. You have a piece of that, don't you, with you?
Yeah, so this is our San Joaquin Gold. At retail, it's available in a 5-ounce piece. We think that's a really good size, for a cheese board. If you've got guests coming over, it's got a little bit of a natural rind on the outside. It's a cheese that we're really proud of. Yeah, Michael's got the piece there. You can see.
Look at all that crystallization. I love that. It's got a nice crunch to it. And the flavor, there's just enough tanginess in here, to work really well with the beer or work really well with the salamis. A lot of things that you can pair with it. I mean, I think it's one of the most, excuse the expression, pairable cheeses out there.
It's a very versatile cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. All right, so let's take a look at what we got next coming up.
Old World Aged Cheddar. This is another cheese that is made in a wheel. It's made in a 60-pound wheel. It's aged for a minimum of 14 months. It's also made with raw cow's milk. And when we had hired Mariano Gonzalez to come on as our head cheesemaker, 20 years ago, we had never thought that we were going to be making cheddar. Our experience with cheddar was that it was yellow, that it was relatively, cheap and bland. And then Mariano introduced us to what real cheddar, English style cloth bound cheddar really was. So he brought that cheese to us. We were not experienced cheesemakers at the time. He obviously was. So we told him that, let's go for it. Let's make this cheese. And it quickly became our best selling cheese. We won some really, really great awards with it. We won 5 times the best Farmstead cheddar in North America at the American Cheese Society competition, and then 3 times the best farmhouse cheddar in the world at the World Cheese Awards that are held in London every year. So this was a great cheese for us to add. At that point, we were fairly young cheesemakers, and now I think that Fiscalini is synonymous with premium cloth bound cheddar. So it was a great segue for us to get into.
This is my hands down favorite cheddar. I back in the day, you focused on the bandaged wrap and the style that you have. So talk a little bit about this style of cheese.
Sure. So, cheddar cheese is historically made in England. That's where cheddar cheese came from. And there is a process called cheddaring that if you want to make real, authentic cheddar cheese like they do in England, you need to go through the cheddaring process. And as Michael talked about a little bit earlier, hands-on artisan cheese making is hard work. So the cheddaring process is when we take slabs of curd, we flip it many times, we then put it through a cheddar mill, we salt, and then we hoop. So in order to go through all of those steps, it takes a lot of labor, it takes a lot of time, but the result that you get at the end, which is our old world cheddar, is well worth everything that we have to go through to make.
We see a lot of times that the cheddars, and I get this all the time, people saying, I only eat orange cheddar. I really love the flavor of orange cheddar. What do you say to that when people are saying that you don't have orange cheddar?
Well, the reason that, coloring was added to cheddar cheese a long, long ago was that throughout the different times of the year, based on the feed that the cows were eating, the milk would take on a slightly different color. And so some companies wanted to make their product extremely consistent all year long. So they added a dye to it. They added the orange dye so that consumers would think that the cheese was the same all year round. We don't add any coloring. The cheese that comes directly out of our cows, the milk that comes directly out of our cows, that's what we have to make cheese out of every single day. So we don't standardize our cheese or our milk. We don't add or remove fat or protein. How it comes out of the cow, that's what we have to work with in our vats. So I don't knock anybody that makes orange cheddar. I just think that some of the imperfections that come along with not standardizing your milk, that's what makes cheese really unique, is that you may try old world cheddar that was made in November and you try a same type of cheese that was made, in July, and they're going to taste a little different. I think that's what makes trying different cheeses and different wines and different beers. I think that's what makes it fun, is that every time you try it, you may pick up something new. It may taste a little bit different than the last time you had it.
You understand more about the milk than most people do, because being a dairy farmer originally, the differences that you get, seasonality and different lactational cycles. So, and you're working with raw milk, so you're not pasteurizing or blending or anything like that. So, can you talk a little bit, because this is important to the fact of the differences that we have about how the milks make it a little different seasonality wise?
Yeah, so our cows are fed what we call a total mixed ration, which means that we take a number of different ingredients, 15 to 20 total different ingredients. We blend them together, and then we deliver the feed to the cows. We're in the Central Valley of California, so during the summer, it's really hard to, have cows, graze on pasture. And then in the winter, when we get a little bit of rain, it's difficult to keep our cows clean. So we have our cows in free stalls where they're, the barns have big fans and soakers that keep the cows cool. And then in the spring and the fall, we let the cows outside. So for us, what it's really about is what different types of feed we have available throughout the year. That's what our cows consume, and that milk is going to taste different throughout the year. So what we try to do is we try to take those differences, and that's where the skill of being a cheesemaker comes into play. Take the differences in the milk, the differences in the butter fat, and the protein composition, and try to make a consistent cheese. So we do have a little bit of a luxury that our herd manager and our cheesemaker are in constant communication. They're sharing ideas. They're letting each other know when the milk tastes different, when the butter fat changes. So it's really neat to be able to have all of that under one roof where we can communicate and we can let each other know when things might be happening where we need to make a change, or when things are growing great, that we keep it going that way. And it's just an ever evolving, everything changes every day. You can't make any batch of cheese exactly the same as you did the day before, but that's what makes it fun.
And that makes it interesting as well. And I have to say that I have been enjoying your cheese, your cheddars, I guess about 10 years or maybe even more. And the consistency is there, and in addition to it, it's just a magnificent cheddar. It is my gold standard when I'm entertaining. Somebody says, I'm in cheese. Oh, really? What kind of cheese do you eat? People ask me all the time, okay, if you're going to buy one cheese, what are you going to buy? And, we talk about the quality that you can get out of it. But, again, it comes from those resources, your cows, your cheese making, your dedication to the craft. Your cheddar is just so much fun to play with, to eat and to pair. I've done so many different things, and especially over the years, you and I have done beer tastings and wine tastings with this particular cheese. And I'm pairing it up today with a little Sweetwater 420 Pale Ale, and which the Pale Ales work really well with this. And one of my favorite, and it was on the TV show yesterday, is this pepper jelly. I just love a pepper jelly with cheddar. I think it's just like they were made for each other. It's just so cool. And just those guys together, maybe a little cracker. I have a little bit of the rustic bakery, just the regular sea salt, or olive oil and sea salt, which I think just adds a little bit to it. But what do you usually pair with the cheddar besides a grilled cheese sandwich?
Well, I think your beer pairing is spot on. So the cheddar with a pale ale, the acidities of the two, they play really well together. Michael and I have done a lot of beer and cheese pairings, and some of them are a home run, and then you have other ones that aren't, and that's what makes it fun too, is you play around. You try different things with it. But I think that what you have, the pairings that you've suggested, the olive oil and sea salt crackers, and then any pepper jelly, you get a little bit of that spice, and then you wash it all down with a pale ale, and that's a pretty good lunchtime snack.
Yes, it is. It's really nice. And for me, I get a nice cheese board tonight to sit back with my family and enjoy. I mean, exceptional cheeses. Um, when you talk about the pairings, a lot of times when people are pairing up cheeses, of course they want suggestions. My suggestion is always start with something that you like and work with it. See how these things work together. Like you said, not everything worked really well, but we learn from that. We learn kind of why it didn't work. And I think it's sometimes easier to say, I didn't like it because of this than it is I like it because, well, I just like it, but you know what you don't like, so that's pretty helpful there. You have the label to show?
Yeah,
There we go.
Old
Yeah.
World Cheddar, made in a similar size as the San Joaquin Gold. When we took on our new labeling, we also added some of the characteristics of the cheese, and with the Old World Cheddar, we've got savory, intense, and sharp. And I think that for most people, when they eat a mild cheddar or a sharp cheddar, you really have to understand what a real sharp cheddar is. I think ours being aged for 14 months, that flavor profile, when you taste that, that's what you should be getting when you try a real good sharp cheddar.
Absolutely, and that's when you see those signs that saying extra or seriously sharp, this is what a cheddar should be. It's got, like you mentioned, it's an English style, so you have that very traditional cheddar. Basically, what I grew up with was older style cheddars that really brought out that nice tang. But one thing that you have that I really admire is that balance of that butteriness in there. That butter is still there, that milky butter that comes across really gives it just such depth, and it makes it just such a great cheddar. Well, let's go ahead and step up to our next cheese.
Yeah, so here we have our Lionza. The name Lionza is actually a town in Switzerland, which is where our family immigrated from in the late 1800s when they came to the United States. So my father took some trips back to Switzerland, and he was talking to some of our relatives that still live there. Some people in the village was trying different cheeses. They even met with a few cheesemakers and ended up coming home with some ideas of how to make a cheese that was reflective of where we came from. And so here we have, a piece of the Lionza. Some of the descriptive words that we have for this cheese are smooth, tangy, and creamy. And when we use the word tangy, we've got to be really careful, right? What we mean by tangy is that it's got enough acidity that it's not overpowering, but that it gives you a little bit of a fruity type of flavor to it. It's also a cheese you've got to be really specific with your pairings, because if you use cheese that has a high acidity or a fruity type of flavor and you go with too fruity of a beer, sometimes it doesn't always work. But this cheese, I think it's got a good place in pairings. I actually think this cheese pairs, better with wine than it does with beer. I like to use a Pinot Noir, from the Willamette Valley in Oregon. That's usually a good area that pairs really well with our Lionza.
I remember when this first came out, and I was I believe my first time experiencing it was in Denver at a show there, and we paired it up with it was kind of a sourish beer, but it was an old world style. That was absolutely fabulous. I always remember that as just being such a classic. I think it was Sam Adams, one of their experimental beers that we had, but it was really good. And, one of the things that, having all three of these on here is we talked about them being the the first two being really crunchy. This one, I mean, it's got you know, you got a lot of you know, elasticity to it, but it's you know, such a beautiful cheese. This is just beautiful to work with, to hold and to handle. A lot of butter. You can really feel some of the butter sweating off of it, and a little bit of nuttiness. I paired this up with a local beer. This is Cigar City, and this is the Tombega, and it is a red IPA. So you were talking about the Pinot Noir having that little bit of you know, that real richness with it. Well, this has got a nice maltiness, but with that acidity, this kind of kicks it down. That hoppiness kicks that down and brings out the, I guess, nuttiness of that. And I'm pairing this up with a pear. This is Girl Meets Dirt, and it's an heritage pink Bartlett, and it just goes so well. Pears in this is just magnificent, and I've always advocated you know, using spreads versus fruit. Spreads, all I have to do is open up the jar, and when I'm done, I close the jar. With the fruit, I gotta get it, cut it, keep it cold, or do that. And then what do you do when if there's some left over? Here, I really like working with that spread. So, but I love this cheese. This is one of my favorites. And on a cheese board, you really think about it, with these three different cheeses, you really have that nice variety of you know, differences to be able to please just about anybody's palate.
We've got a local restaurant here in Modesto that uses our Lionza on a dessert pizza, and they drizzle honey over the top of it. So you've got to try that cheese with some honey sometime.
That is so funny, because when I went to my source, when I went up to look through what I was going to be pairing with it earlier, and I was looking at the honey, and I was saying, you know, you should do honey. You know, I have like 20 honeys now, and I have an oak honey just out of Portugal, and I love that, and I thought about that, and but I will do that. I will do that next. I'll do that next. All right, so we're ready to step into the next level of your cheeses, and that takes us to your blendings, which I honestly believe that you've been blending cheeses as long, if not longer, than a lot of the guys that's all they do, right?
Yeah, my father was big into different flavors that we could, you know, impose into our cheese. And so from the beginning, we were playing around with a lot of different flavors. So we've been making flavored cheddars for a long time. I think the key when you're taking any type of cheese and you're adding flavor to it, is you want to make sure that the flavors complement each other and they don't compete against each other. So when we add flavoring to our cheeses, we want to make sure that you can taste whatever flavor it is that we're adding to the cheese, but that you never lose the ability to taste that cheddar. So that's kind of a little lesson that we try to abide by when we're using flavors in cheese. So we've got the craft beer cheddar up there. I've got a piece of it here. You can see from the picture as well. This is a cheese. This one's fairly new for us. You know, this is only about 3 or 4 years old since we've been making this cheese. But we take a neighboring brewery here, Dust Bowl Brewery in Turlock, and we use their Imperial Stout beer, and we soak the cheddar curds in the beer for a little bit over an hour, and then we drain the beer off, and then we press the cheese, and enough of that beer flavor stays behind with the curds that when you try it at first bite, people say, oh, I don't really taste that. And then you let it sit there in your mouth for a minute and it really opens up and you go, oh, wow, I can now taste that beer. That's a nice pairing.
Well, you've done the hop yard. No, you've done a hop
Hopscotch.
beer. What?
Hopscotch.
Yes. Yeah. And that was you've done that for a long time, right?
Yeah, we did that cheese for quite some time, where um, we were using more of a hoppy beer, and in the more recent past, we've decided to just have one beer cheese versus having two that we offer. So the California craft beer cheddar was the one that stuck around, and that's our only beer cheese we have now.
Which is really delicious. Obviously I like beer a lot, and I do a lot of pairing with it, and so adding this into the beer can be distracting, but this isn't. I really taste a lot of the cheese, and then I do taste that nice maltiness of that imperial stout. So it's got a nice balance. You did a great job with it, and I think it looks really cool as well, having that imperial stout stain on this beer, on this cheese. Looks really cool.
Yeah, that's what we wanted, right? We wanted to make sure that you can taste the cheese, taste the beer, that it looks different on a cheese board as well, with that little bit of color that it has to it.
Yeah, very well balanced. I'm kind of sticking with the red IPA. It works really well with it. They pick up the flavors together, and like that, it's got a nice tanginess to it. But the tanginess is not distracting. It's not such a high acidity there. It's just really kind of reminds me of a Monterey Jack, that tang that you get from it. Not nearly as much as a cheddar. Just there's a lot of creaminess in that cheese.
Yeah, I think next up we've got the smoked cheddar here, and this is our farmhouse cheddar that we make. That's the base cheese for this smoked cheese that we have here. We naturally smoke it, which means we actually have a wood burning smoker that we use a blend of hickory and cherry wood chips. Um, it seems like everything we do takes time. We don't do anything, really fast when we're trying to get the flavors that we're looking for with our cheeses. So it takes a full workday to smoke this cheese. We have a smoker that we built on our farm. We didn't want to use liquid smoke, or we didn't want to use smoked flavor. We use the real deal. So we built a smoker. It takes about 8 hours to finish it. So it's a full day's work. And when we've had people try this cheese, they immediately know, oh, that's natural smoke. There's nothing fake about that. It's authentic. So this cheese is, when you melt it, it can go really, really well on a cheeseburger, on any type of barbecue. It's got that kind of Texas barbecue flavor to it. So it's got a lot of different uses for it, and it can just be a good snacking cheese as well.
So you have a lot of choices of different cheeses that you can smoke. Why did you choose the farmhouse cheddar for that?
We wanted to choose a cheese that was fairly young in age. So when you already have, go with our old world cheddar or our San Joaquin Gold, for example, that are aged for 14 and 12 months respectively. That cheese is already quite crumbly, and it's already got a really full, robust flavor profile. We did not want the flavor profiles to compete with each other. So our farmhouse cheddar is a good young cheddar. It's got more of a sweet flavor than it does a sharp cheddar flavor. And we felt that that was a good cheese that we could impart this smoky flavor on, and it would complement it rather than challenge it.
Well, it definitely does. That is that's a magnificent smoke. It's interesting that I tasted it as you were talking, and you really pick up that authentic smokiness to it. It's not. It doesn't go away. It's definitely there. I can see adding this into so many recipes that you want that smoky, meaty flavor to. That this would be just crazy good as a mac and cheese to have that smokiness and that flavor. And, throw a little bit of bacon in there, and this would be just so good. On a sandwich. There's all the great flavors in there. I shifted it. I tried it with the red IPA, and red IPA didn't help it, but the pale ale does. The pale ale kind of helps bring out a little bit more of the cheese and tones down a little bit of the smokiness. But the smokiness is what this is about. It is real smoke. I just really love that. It's nice. You did a great job with that.
Not to continue with the different types of pizzas, but there's a restaurant in our area that uses this on a barbecue chicken pizza. So they've got the chicken barbecue sauce and then the smoked cheddar that's grated over the top, and you definitely get the flavor. Fast flavored cheddar. So we like to joke that my dad was eating our farmhouse cheddar one day, and while he was drinking a glass of wine, he dropped a piece of cheese in it, and that's how Purple Moon got created. That's not the complete story, but my dad always wanted. He loves wine. He enjoys a really good red wine, and so he wanted us to somehow impart a wine flavor into our cheese. So the first way that he made Purple Moon was he actually poured some wine into our Tupperware, put a piece of our cheese into it, took it out the next day, and it was really good. So we went to one of our local wineries here in the valley of Central Valley, California, and we asked them if they could make a specific blend for us where we could get that really dark purple wine color, but that the taste wasn't so powerful that you couldn't taste the cheese. So this cheese, we just love the color. When you go into a cheese shop, you don't see a whole lot of purple, so it's very unique. You put this on a cheese board and everyone's gonna ask, oh, what's that purple cheese? So it's a good conversation starter, and it actually has quite a few applications in the kitchen as well. There's a pulled pork Purple Moon quesadilla that's on our website if you ever want to get a little bit wild in the kitchen and try something new. There's a lot of applications that you can use a wine cheese for, and we're really happy with it, and we hope that you enjoy it as well.
So how did it get? I understand the purple part, but where did the moon come from?
So that was, my dad's the one that came up with the name Purple Moon. And our original very first label design with this cheese was it had a cow sitting on a sliver of a moon drinking a glass of wine. So one of my dad's graphic design friends came up with that label design, the cow jumping over the moon, drinking a glass of red wine. And somehow my dad decided that we were going to go with the name Purple Moon for this cheese.
Some of the conversation I've had in the past with cheesemakers is naming their cheeses, and it's always an interesting direction that, some people go with the names of their kids. I think Jessica Little, they named almost all their cheeses after their kids, and Jasper Farm is locals and things like that. So it's always interesting hearing that story. I really appreciate that. This balance, big fan of red wine as well. And this has a great balance to it. One of the things that you can taste, and I think that when you talk about wine, you get that grapeness in it, but this doesn't have the grapeness. This has the richness that you get from a wine. And I think that was probably the direction that your dad was looking at, was trying to come up with, that beautiful balance of that red wine. And I paired it up with the Lagunitas, and it works well. So you can take a little bit of the wine cheese and work well with a beer, especially something as light as that beer is. So thank you so much for bringing this great spread of cheeses and taking the time to talk about the difference in each of your cheeses. I always enjoy being able to have some time with you and kind of reminisce, and also at the same time let everybody know the depth of cheeses that you have and the quality that you have and the history. So it's really cool. And I'm glad to hear that your dad's still hanging around, keeping eyes on everything.
Absolutely. He, the cheese company really, I mean, that's his baby. He always wanted to have his own brand. And when you're a dairy farmer that sells milk to a co-op or to a creamery that blends it together with 20 or 200 different dairy farms milk, you lose ownership, you lose a little pride. And that was my father's dream. And our family continues to carry it on, and he's definitely looking over our shoulder, making sure we're not messing with his dream.
Well, good. Well, Brian, it was really good seeing you. Thanks a lot for the cheeses. I really greatly appreciate that, as always. And it was good to see you.
Good to virtually see you, and hopefully we get to see each other in person sooner than later.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking for January to get out there, and hopefully we'll get together and be able to share a pint and some cheese.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right. Thanks again. I really appreciate the time and everything, and it was really like I said, such a great time to be able to have your cheeses and have you on. So thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.